Hello and welcome to the Ellen Made Book Club and my June reading wrap-up. So in May I had read 12 books, and so when I was picking out my June TBR I was like, let's pick 12 books. And so I did, and I did not read 12 books in June, which is completely fine. May was not a normal month for me. I had a week off work and like on a little retreat, but like mainly in May I was doing Escape the Readathon, and in June I sort of needed to chill out for a bit and not, read competitively, which has been really nice. I have really been enjoying reading lately, which I usually do, but it goes up and down. I ended up reading 4 books from my planned TBR, and then a couple of other books that I sort of chose on a bit of a whim. The first book I finished was Making History by KJ Parker, which I listened to on audio, and I mainly tried it because it was short and it had the word making in it, which fits one of the prompts on the buzzword challenge. The premise also sounded intriguing to me. It's sort of a sci-fi novella, I guess, where there are people and their boss person or king or something, the person in charge has ordered them to find like an ancient city that doesn't exist. So they have to create a fake ancient city. It's a very strange book, but I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed the narration and I thought the concept was good. I'm not sure the execution was perfect. I'm not really sure what I was expecting. There weren't a lot of female characters, and so it felt kind of dudey, which I guess I was expecting, but it's always weird when they're all men and then there's just one woman, and it's very boxed in kind of character. She serves certain purposes, and I don't know. I still enjoyed the story and I thought it was an interesting concept. It wasn't very fantastical or anything. It was just that it's a fantasy world, but it's very similar to our world, and there was no magic or anything or particularly sciencey stuff. There is science, but it's our science. It makes sense. It read more just like a thought experiment in a world that is very similar to ours, but has different names for the geography, basically. It's very short, and so if you think it sounds intriguing, give it a go. I enjoyed it. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. I don't typically do half stars, but it's it's a 3-star book basically, but I liked it fine. I also read Spiraling by Cal Speet, which is a contemporary novel set in London, and it has a very summery and lighthearted vibe, so that was nice for June. And it's also a queer book, so it's also perfect for Pride. In this book we follow Gabriel, who is a gay man in his 20s, and he has just broken up with his boyfriend because of a scandalous situation, and he's also fired from his job. So things are not great. He's not feeling his best, and he is looking to his friends Evie and Tasha to help him get through this season of life. This to me read like a fresh take on Sex and the City. We're in London and we're following a younger gay man and his friends and him, dating and the discussions that they have in their friend group. It's also a little bit mixed media, so we get text messages, and he has an interview he does with himself. And so, yeah, it's very a playful read, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one. There are some heavier things in this, so if there are certain things that you definitely don't want to have in the books that you read, maybe check content warnings, but on the whole, it was a very lighthearted and fun read to me, and funny. I definitely chuckled several times. There's a lot of drama and intrigue, both in terms of the dating and relationship stuff and the friendship group, and there's also a lot of family stuff and coming out stuff and aspects of being a gay man stuff. But overall, a very lighthearted and fun read, and one that I would definitely recommend. Next, I have Elena Knows by Claudia Piñeiro, which was a very anticipated read of mine. This has been on my radar for a long time, and this author has been on my radar, and I've been wanting to try her books, and finally did, and I enjoy this one a lot. In this we follow Elena, who is an older woman who is dealing with Parkinson's, and her adult daughter has been found hanging in a church, and the police have ruled it a suicide, and Elena is not convinced that that's the case, and she has a person in mind who she wants to help her with this, and that person is on the other side of Buenos Aires, and so Elena is gathering all the strength that she has and trying to make her way there to, you know, call in a favor. So throughout the book we follow her on that journey, and as she is on this journey we also get like the backstory and what happened and how everything came to be, and the relationship between Elena and her daughter Rita, and other things in society that have played a part on that. I'm not really sure what I can say about this without spoiling it, and I don't want to spoil it because I would highly recommend it. If you think that it sounds the least bit interesting, I will say it's not an easy read, but it's very thought-provoking, and it's sort of morally grey. Like, it tackles topics that are not so black and white, and I always like that in a book. I always like to sort of turn things over and look at them from different angles, and so I appreciate when that is being done in a book as well, and when, you know, we have new information and so your perspective sort of shifts. I really like that, and this book definitely has that. It also has some commentary about things in society, and those are things that I find interesting as well. It's also a very interesting depiction of this relationship between the mother and the daughter, and how things are not always perfect, but there's also a lot of love there, and I don't want to say too much. I thought this was fantastic, and I also think it's very sort of readable, even though the topics it deals with are, you know, kind of bleak and heavy. The text itself is very readable, and I enjoyed being with Elena on this journey and seeing how she thought about things. And yeah, it sparks a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings, and it's a very well written book, and I definitely want to read more from this author. Moving on to my spontaneous choice of book, which was The Rose Bargain by Sasha Peyton Smith, which is a romantasy, which is not something that I typically read. This one sounded intriguing to me because there is a sort of dilemma in it. It's set in England in like the 1800s or something, and there's this queen who has magical powers, and everyone gets like one bargain in their lifetime, when they can go to the queen and ask for something to change in their life. Like, some people want to be more beautiful, and some people want to be rich, and some people want to forget things, or you know, have a better nose or whatever. And then the queen comes up with something like the cost for that bargain, a trade, something to trade it with. And so if you want a better nose, then maybe you'll have to pay with one of your toes, or your nails. And it can also be like more abstract things, or like maybe you don't dream anymore, or maybe you don't like smell certain things. And that whole thing intrigued me, because it's like, what would you give to have what you think you want? So that's sort of the setup. And then we follow this young woman who has just turned 18, and she's gonna be in this, like, you know, debutante season. And so she and all of the other 18-year-old girls go to have their bargain done with the queen. I'm not explaining this very well, but as they're doing that, it's announced that the prince is looking for a wife. And so now all of a sudden they want to make bargains to, you know, win him over. And then the prince and the queen also have their own ways to determine who is the best choice for this prince. It turned out to be a bit more dark than I was expecting, which was positive. Like, the cover is very, you know, pink and flowery and stuff, and so I was expecting it to be a lot more lighthearted, but there are some like gruesome things and some darker tricks being played on people, and yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I also went on to listen to the second book in this duology. I listened to the whole thing on audiobook, which was very well produced. I didn't like the second book as much as the first one. I don't think the stakes were as interesting. Like the stakes were still high, and it was different than the first book, so like that was good that it wasn't just the same thing all over again, but it didn't really have that sense of like, what would you do? I think part of the fun for me with the first book was like the novelty and like the idea, the thought experiment of like, what would you trade to have this thing be better in your life? I don't know, it was still, you know, enjoyable enough, and I still finished it. I usually listen to it before bed, and like it's not a book that I was like super invested in. It was more like just a fun story to follow along with, which is fine. It was a nice way to balance out some of my more serious reads this month. The final book that I finished was Lightseekers by Femi Kayode, which is a mystery thriller set in Nigeria. In this we follow an investigative psychologist who is called Philip, and he found something out that makes him suspect that his wife is cheating on him, and then he sort of is tasked with finding out why a certain situation happened where 3 male students were tortured and burned by a mob in this like smaller town in Nigeria. So he flies out there and starts like talking to people and finding out clues and trying to figure out how this happened. It's not really a question of finding out who did something, it's more like the mechanisms and the reasons why and the events that led up to this. The police are not very cooperative, and like the people in the town are not very welcoming. Nobody really seems to want him to solve this. He also has a driver that becomes involved in things a little bit, and then he has this person who has given him this task, who is the father of one of the boys who were killed. This is based on true events, which I didn't realize until the end of the book, but that definitely made it more impactful. I thought the story was very engaging, and like I was interested to follow along and see where it was gonna go, and so it was already like a good book in that sense, a good thriller. I don't think it's a perfect novel. I think that there were some things that could have been a little bit more difficult. There were things that were difficult and like, you know, obstacles to overcome, but I also feel like some aspects of the story were a little bit too easy, or like it was just sort of there, you know, in mysteries or thrillers, and it's just like you just happen to come across a person who is like super involved in the case that you happen to be working on. I still enjoyed following along on the investigation of it. I like a good investigation. I want to see all the evidence and I want to hear all the interviews. Like, yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and it's a very like complex story. Like there are a lot of factors that go into this situation, and overall I really enjoyed it and would definitely recommend it, and I'm really glad I finally got around to reading it. There is a sequel called Gaslight, and I would definitely be interested in reading that as well. It's also over 400 pages. It's about 413, I think, so it also qualifies for Big Book Summer. Those are all the books that I read in June, and overall I'm really happy with like the range of books that I read and also the sort of average rating. I had a really good time with all of these, and I think that they sort of balanced each other very well. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.